Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back with another Married to Medicine review. I personally can't wait for next week's episode. I enjoyed the preview for next week more than I did this episode. And I think part of that is because I can't wait for King to get at Dr. G, because Dr. G continues to rewrite history and the people around them are letting them do it. But we'll get to it. We begin this episode with a montage of the ladies. Contessa is talking about Botox. I don't know what her and Scott's obsession is with it, but she's talking about Botox. Tisha is getting rid of old things that she claims are quads. Toya is getting kisses from Dr. Eugene as she tells him to squeeze her butt while she's doing it. Avery is watching and looking at his mom and dad like they're crazy. I actually think it's kind of cute. I know that as old as I am, when I see my dad and my bonus mom be affectionate towards each other, I think it's the cutest thing, because after all this time, they still love one another and they're still attracted to each other and they're still keeping it fun. That's what it should be. And really, children should see healthy dynamics with parents and, in front of their kids. I think it's healthy. It's good. So she's joking around and she's like, this is how you should do it, son. Like, girl, some people may think it was too much, but I laugh because I like that they're so open with their kids. So Ashton comes in and she's like, hey, Ashton. He's like, you know what? Why are you saying my name like that? And she's like, are you going to go to the dance? You got the 8th grade dance coming up. And he's like, he doesn't want to go. She's like, but you need to go so you can keep your popularity. And he's like, I'm good. I don't want to go. I think she was saying it as a joke. They go over stories about how it was when they were kids. We find out that Dr. Eugene was the prom king, but they only had like 20 something students, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But he Toya loves pointing that type of stuff out. But overall, Ashton is like her. No, it's like him. Avery is like her. So apparently, Avery is more vocal with the stuff that he does, whereas Ashton is more like Eugene, like he does things, but he's quiet about it. So we find out that Avery is on his 4th girlfriend. And Toya's like, okay, that's fine. You can have little friends. But one thing you need to understand is hugs, no PDA. They don't want any calls about them kissing any girls in school, because they talk about how some people were found in the closet or something doing stuff. And Dr. Eugene is like, if I get a call like that, understand that I'm going to turn into my father. Like, my father used to, I think he said, was a corrections officer, and he was really, really strict. And he said he has a strict side too. Toya's like, nah, not really. He's like, okay, well, I'm more of a talker. I think that it's important to talk about things with my children. My children just need to be happy that I don't react the way that my parents did. And I think that's the case with a lot of us as far as the reaction thing. I know for myself, my son has it way easier than what I had. Like, a lot of things were not tolerated. There's discussions that I've had with my son that I would have never been able to have with either one of my parents, really, at certain ages. So I like the way that they approach that. We see Heavenly go over to Dr. Jackie's house. Dr. Jackie has called her over there to let her know that she has been invited to the White House to be a part of a reproductive freedom conference. So she gets to bring another physician. So Heavenly smiled like, you're going to bring me? You called me over here because you're going to bring me? And she's like, well, I only have, one other ticket. And I decided to invite Simone. It makes the most sense since she's the OBGYN. And it does make the most sense because she is a OBGYN and we're talking about, reproductive freedom. So Heavenly gets a little salty about it for a second. And she's like, I helped her with this and I helped her with that. And she gonna bring Simone. And then she looks at her and she was like, well, actually, I have another ticket and I want you to come too. And she gets excited about it. She's like, you serious? And she's like, yeah. She's like, okay, Jackie, I promise I'm not gonna embarrass you. I promise I'm gonna be good. On to Phaedra. She meets up with her tall glass of African chocolate that she met at the speed dating that Sweet Tea held. They get to know each other. He says that he doesn't know her and what she does. So she tells him that, she's in a funeral home director and this and her main profession is that she's a lawyer. I didn't know that Phaedra still practices law. That's good to know. But he said that he didn't know her and what she does, but he knows her ex and his wife. So you have to know something about her in order to know Apollo. Phaedra says it's not a problem for her that he knows, them, as long as, they're not like close friends or something like that. She's like, at this point, I just want to have fun. I don't want to get married again. And I just want to be with somebody who makes me happy. And so far, he's making me happy. It's time to go to DC. The ladies are excited about meeting VP Harris. So they arrive in DC. The next day we see Dr. Jackie go over some do's and don'ts, and they keep telling Heavenly, like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. It has to be for the show and a joke, because if they thought Heavenly was going to act up, there's no way that they would ever invite her to that White House. Jackie points out how 60 years ago, the only Black people who were in the White House were servants. And today, here they are, and they're coming as Black doctors that get to meet with the Black VP. VP Harris talks about rights and how 2 years ago, rights were taken away by the Supreme Court that affect women, with there being no exceptions when it comes to pregnancy, for grapes, put a G in front of it, incest, birth defects, etc. Seeing the clip and seeing her talk and hearing what she had to say was beautiful. But if I'm completely honest, the way that things are already rolling out and the rights and stuff that have already been taken away since the 20th is a little scary to me. And I'm nervous for our nation as a whole, not just because of what's being lost, but because of the divide that I feel like it may cause. And I'm just hearing her talk, and I'm like, wow, this is so much deeper than I think a lot of people realize. I hope that it doesn't get as bad as I feel like it's going to get, but I'm to the point now where I don't even like to watch the news too much or look at certain comments, because there's so much hate. And I just feel like whether the president that I wanted to be in office got in office or not, it doesn't require all of this stuff. It's heavy and it's dark. And I just got to say, like, let's keep good thoughts up for our nation, because it's about to be a mess. So Jackie meets, sorry for the tangent, VP Harris, and she is nervous, and she's like, she didn't even really know what to say because she was just so excited. And it's cute to see Jackie fangirl because it is a big deal. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like if I didn't see someone of that stature and know the history of her. She's the first woman to have this position, a Black woman to have this position. Like, it's a big deal. So they talk, they take pictures, the ladies take pictures as well. It's a great day. The next day we see the couples getting ready for Key West, Florida. Simone doesn't want the trip to be fake, but she wants people to get along. Contessa is supposed to be getting ready for the trip, and she's over here still talking about Heavenly. It's like she has nothing else to give other than the Heavenly storyline. Like, what else can you talk about, Contessa? You have this whole business. Let's hear about that. I'm tired of the Heavenly beef. Heavenly was messed up for some of the stuff that she said. You were messed up for some of the things that you said. I'm over it. Her husband tells her, don't ruin the trip for everybody else. Like, you can be cordial and just go the other way. And it's interesting that he's saying that now, when before, according to Contessa, he couldn't even be in the same room with Heavenly. Is that really the case? Yes or no? Heavenly's at her house, we find out that she invited Apollo to the couple's trip. So messy. She feels like this is a great way to show Greg and Quad how to divorce and move on and get along. Being cordial doesn't mean that they're in a great space, number one. And Greg and Quad have had too many things occur that have not been addressed in order for them to move on. Greg still isn't being honest about some things, because in one moment he admitted to putting hands on Quad, but he tried to act as if it was a defense tactic. When I believe Quad, I believe a whole bunch of stuff was going on in that marriage that we weren't privy to. And the people around the show are aware of this, and yet they still allowed him to come back on television, which just goes goes back to a lot of times people aren't protected when it comes to this space. We see it on series like Sister Wives and other places where they're okay with seeing people be mistreated as long as it gives a good storyline. So Heavenly lets Phaedra know, look, she FaceTimes her and she's like, hey girl, I just want to let you know that I, kind of invited Apollo on the trip, and I just hope you're okay with that. If you really hope she was okay with it, Heavenly, you should have contacted her before inviting, him to the trip. Now, Phaedra says she's all right on FaceTime and thanks her for letting her know and says don't tell anybody else. And then when production asks her about it, if she's okay with him coming, she's like, I really don't know. Which is fair. She could have said that to Heavenly, or I would have preferred that you, didn't invite him, but since you did, but no. We're at Greg's and he's trying to get out of going on the trip. He's talking about how much trauma he went through with Quad. The way that you were looking at Quad when you saw her that time, when she came back at the event, I don't feel that way. I feel like Greg, a part of Greg, still is upset with Quad because of the way things went down. I feel like Greg, as much as he tries to act like he's beyond Quad, Greg seems to talk about Quad more than Quad talks about him, despite whatever flashbacks we saw of whatever in recent years. That seems to be the case. And he's just gonna be cordial. T says, be cordial and keep your distance. And I feel like you just keep rewriting history. So we head to Quaz and she tells, King that she's nervous about the trip because her ex is going to be there and she doesn't know what's going to come and if, that's going to be a problem. And King's like, it's not going to be a problem for me. Quad is nervous that the group will bring up things that's happened in the past and she doesn't want King to be blindsided. And King is like, I'm going to be good. Don't worry about me. I wrote here, this is why Dr. G should have been kept off the show. I just don't get it. I feel like the fact that Quad is worrying about something coming up and then we see a clip for next week of them addressing the fact that Quad is saying, I left you, I left him. I just don't feel like we need to go and visit that. That's not this type of thing. Y'all should have did that when y'all was getting your divorce. We don't need this now when both of you have moved on. He's married and his current wife is sitting there. Kind of comes across as a little disrespectful to me. Y'all let me know what you think. So we see everyone fly to Key West. Scott is ready. Not Scott. I kept calling the guy Scott, who's not Scott. Steve is ready to turn up. He said he is the turn up type, whereas his wife says she wants to lounge. Simone and Cecil are there to greet people. They got there early so they could set different things up. Simone hugs King and welcomes him to his first couple trip. And Toya's like, let me be messy immediately. And she says, you got to make sure that you hug Dr. G that way. You got to make sure you hug Dr. G the way you hug King. And I'm like, Toya, girl, shush. So Simone and Cecil remind us of how Quad and Dr. G both say things about each other and yada, yada, go. And they think that Tisha and them are going to be fine. The issue is going to be Quad and Dr. G. I think the issue is going to be them. And if Dr. G speaks too recklessly to Quad, like what we saw in the next clip, at some point, King's going to bark. You're disrespecting his woman. What do you expect? Heavenly goes to hug Tisha because we're reminded that they made up, but how long is it going to last? Then she hugs Contessa and Contessa decides to bring her down to the ground. They laugh about it. Everyone checks in their rooms. I'm glad that didn't become a thing. As bad as Heavenly and Contessa supposedly don't like each other, there are moments where I see glimpses of they can get along for the sake of this show if everybody just stays out of it and doesn't create unnecessary conflict because they're doing it here. It's time for teams to be distributed. They are going to do a relay. They assign teams based on who had issues with who in the past. So Team Goldfish is Simone, Cecil, Steve, and Mimi. There are no issues there. They just wanted Steve because he is an athlete. Just because you are good at football doesn't mean you're good when it comes to kayaking, but we'll see. On Team Starfish is Quad, King, Eugene, and Toya. Shark is Contessa, Scott, Heavenly, and Damon. Snapper is Jackie Curtis, Tisha, Dr. G, and Phaedra. Phaedra comes out with her shirt. She cut it up. And Simone says that she made shirts. That it was no point. Like, she grabs her water bottle and she's talking all loud on the microphone. And she's talking about how, you know, she made the shirts that says, you know, these kinds of bees. And I just want to know if you want to redeem yourself by saying what types of bees we are, which sounds crazy. The donation subject comes up. Quad points out, like, look, I hear what you're saying, but these are glorious itches. These are educated itches. These are we visited the White House itches. And I'm just listening and I'm like, okay, she doesn't get it. They don't get it. It's not that big of a deal. It is what it is. The new people are welcome. Quad is excited when they say King. She's like, oh, King. It's her man. Let her go up for her man. And I can't help but notice how Dr. G seems bothered. So the goal is for people to work out their problems and come together stronger and better, Simone says. So it's like, okay, if that's the case, can we just put Heavenly, Contessa, and T in the room? And Contessa lets us know that if 3 of them went in the room, 2 of them would come out and then they would go grab drinks, and that would be her and Sweet Tea. So the water races are going to be on kayaks and paddle boards. I will never understand why, when you know that you're going to go on a vacation as a Black woman, as a woman with any type of hair other than straight, why you would think that it's a good idea to wear a wig. I don't feel like a wig is a good option. Get yourself some braids or put your hair in a ponytail. But wigs and water I always look at women like, what? Like, y'all knew how long you were going on a vacation and you couldn't set up an appointment or do your hair and do some braids or do a slick back? Yeah. So, we're reminded by Simone and Heavenly that Heavenly and Contessa need to do the most work. So 2 people are supposed to be in the boat and 2 people from each team will take turns going out on the paddleboard. I knew immediately when I saw it that Curtis would not be doing anything. Curtis says he won't fit. Everybody gets in. He also says he's not a fan of water. He's not doing it. Damon's thinking about the real sharks that are possibly in the water. They're about to start the relay. And the episode ends with us seeing a whole bunch of stuff that's going to go down, I guess, between next week and maybe the week after. You guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this episode. If there's something that I missed that you want to talk about, put it down below. Until next time.